Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rink-Side with Hits and Clips. Well, this episode is going to be episode number 27, and we're going to be covering two specific topics in this one. First, we're going to be covering the current status and update of the Centennial Cup of the entire country for Junior A hockey, as well as announcing our 2025 PJHL Schmalz Cup champion. Be sure to stick around for more details on who won the 2025 PJHL Schmalz Cup championship and how the series ended up going down. So let's get started. Well, if you're new to our channel, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting us. We really appreciate everyone who has been engaging with our content in the comments. Thank you for the likes, the subscriptions, and for all of the follows over on our Spotify and Bluesky account too. We are still trying to grow our Bluesky account a little bit more, but we're hoping by the summer or the fall to expand into a further and newer social media platform, so be sure to stay tuned for that announcement. But in the meantime, for this specific episode, we are going to start with the 2025 Centennial Cup. The Centennial Cup is obviously made up of Junior A hockey teams. We have 118 teams in the entire league. We have 9 leagues in total, but only one champion for the Centennial Cup. So before I give an update of who's currently leading the tournament and who's in the tournament, I'm just going to break down each of the leagues here just to give a little bit more detail on how the entire league is made up throughout this entire country. So throughout the entire country, we have different junior hockey leagues in each part of the country, which would be in different provinces. So we have the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, the MJHL, the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, the SJHL, the Alberta Junior Hockey League, the AJHL, the Superior International Junior Hockey League, the SIJHL. Then we have the Maritime Hockey League, the MHL, the Ligue de Hockey Junior AAA du Quebec, the LHJ AAAQ. Then we have the Central Canada Hockey League, the CCHL, the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, the NOJHL, and then the league that pretty much a lot of people are familiar with on this channel so far at the moment is the Ontario Junior Hockey League, the OJHL. So those teams in the OJHL would include the Aurora Tigers, the Buffalo Junior Sabres, the Burlington Cougars, the Caledon Admirals, the Cobourg Cougars, the Collingwood Blues, the Georgetown Raiders, the Halburn County Huskies, the King Rebellion, the Leamington Flyers, the Lindsay Muskies, the Markham Royals, the Milton Menace, the Mississauga Chargers, the Niagara Falls Canucks, the North York Rangers, the Oakville Blades, the Pickering Panthers, the St. Michael Buzzers, the Stouffville Spirit, the Toronto Junior Canadiens, the Toronto Patriots, the Trenton Golden Hawks, and the Wellington Dukes. So that's just the Ontario Junior Hockey League. And like I said, there's 118 teams that make up the entire country for Junior A hockey, but those are just the teams specifically in the Ontario Junior Hockey League. Now, for each league throughout the country, there would be the finals, and then you have the champion of that league that would move on to the current Centennial Cup here. So, for example, the Northern Manitoba Blizzard and the Dauphin Kings, those were the two teams that faced off in the finals for the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. And the Northern Manitoba Blizzard are that one team representing the entire MJHL for Manitoba. In terms of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, it was the Melfort Mustangs and the Weyburn Red Wings who competed in the finals for the SJHL, and the Melfort Mustangs were the team who advanced to the Centennial Cup. Next, we have the Alberta Junior Hockey League, and those two teams in the finals were the Grand Prairie Storm and the Calgary Canucks. The Calgary Canucks I'm actually very familiar with because when I was in Calgary last year and hoping to get back out to Alberta during that time, I was hoping to get involved with the Calgary Canucks on the media team, but overall, I am very familiar with the Calgary Canucks. That's the one league actually throughout the entire country. I'm a little bit surprised that they don't have a team in Edmonton. And I'll just mention all these teams here in the AJHL just so you're familiar with it. So there's Bonnyville, there's Calgary, Camrose, Canmore, Devon, Drayton Valley, Drumheller, Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, Lloydsminster, Old Grizzlies, and Whitecourt. So those are just the teams in the AJHL. In terms of the Superior International Junior Hockey League, so the two teams that faced off in the finals were the Drayton Ice Dogs and the Cam River Fighting Walleye. Some pretty interesting names out in these certain leagues. So for the Alberta Junior Hockey League, Grand Prairie was that team that made it to the Centennial Cup. And then for the Superior International Junior Hockey League, it was the Cam River Fighting Walleye who advanced to the Centennial Cup. Now the Calgary Canucks are obviously in the AJHL with Grand Prairie. However, that was the team that got eliminated by Grand Prairie. So Grand Prairie won the entire AJHL, which means they move on to the Centennial Cup. However, Calgary was eliminated by Grand Prairie, but Calgary is playing in this tournament because they're the hosts of the Centennial Cup. It's similar to the CHL. Teams in the OHL, WHL, and QMJHL. So say, for example, last year, the Saginaw Spirit, they faced off against the London Knights. The London Knights, they won the entire OHL, and then the Saginaw Spirit, they were eliminated in the OHL playoffs, but the Saginaw Spirit competed in the Memorial Cup because they were the hosts. And I believe the hosts play in the Memorial Cup regardless, even if they do get eliminated, just because they deposit a certain amount of money into this tournament to host it. They bring a whole bunch of players through into their organization so they can compete and get that far into the tournament. But just overall, that's a little brief description of why Calgary is in the tournament for the Centennial Cup, even though they were eliminated by Grand Prairie. Well, in terms of the Maritime Hockey League in the finals, it was the Edmundston Blizzard and the Pictou County Crushers, and it was the Edmundston Blizzard that advanced to the Centennial Cup for the Maritimes. In terms of the Ligue de Hockey Junior AAA du Quebec League, it was both the Collège Français du Laguerre versus the Braves de Valleyfield, and it was the Braves de Valleyfield who advanced to the Centennial Cup for this league. In terms of the Central Canada Hockey League, it was both the Rockland Nationals and the Carleton Place Canadians who faced off in the finals for that specific league, and Rockland, they were the team that advanced to the Centennial Cup. In terms of the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, the NOJHL, it was between the Greater Sudbury Cubs and the Hearst Lumberjacks. And it was the Greater Sudbury Cubs who ended up advancing to the Centennial Cup. And then obviously, if you've been following closely on our Rink-Side channel, you'll know that the Milton Menace and the Trenton Golden Hawks faced off in the finals for the OJHL, and Trenton ended up advancing to the Centennial Cup, winning the entire OJHL for this year. So that is just a look of all the teams that are in the Centennial Cup for this year who advanced, and just a little glimpse of the teams that are in each league. I didn't mention every single team in every single league. If you want to know further of who's in each league, you can search it up on those specific league websites or head to the Hockey Canada website in order to see the full national playoff bracket for this 2025 Centennial Cup. Well, just to give you a little glimpse of what's been happening so far in the Centennial Cup, well, Thursday, May 8th was the first day of the tournament, and the Trenton Golden Hawks took on the Northern Manitoba Blizzard, and Trenton, they ended up defeating Northern Manitoba in overtime, so a win goes to them in this tournament. Also happening on Thursday, May 8th, it was the Edmundston Blizzards taking on the Rockland Nationals, Edmundston winning that game also in overtime, 4-3. The Calgary Canucks, the hosts of the Centennial Cup, they took on the Melfort Mustangs of the SJHL, and Calgary won that game 3-1. On Friday, May 9th, it was the Cam River Fighting Walleye who defeated Trenton in overtime, so Cam River defeats Trenton. The Rockland Nationals defeated the Braves de Valleyfield 9-4, and the Greater Sudbury Cubs defeated the Grand Prairie Storm with a final score of 6-2. On Saturday, May 10th, it was the Melfort Mustangs who defeated the Edmundston Blizzard 5-3. The Calgary Canucks came out strong as the hosts of this tournament, defeating the Braves to Valleyfield 11-6. Now, for Sunday, May 11th, at the time of this recording, all these games have not yet happened, but I'm just going to take you through the rest of these games just so you have a glimpse of the overall semifinals and the finals and when those games will take place. So on Sunday, May 11th, Calgary will take on the Rockland Nationals. The Grand Prairie Storm will take on Cam River Fighting Walleye. And then on Monday, May 12th, the Braves to Valleyfield will take on the Edmundston Blizzard. The Greater Sudbury Cubs will take on the Trenton Golden Hawks. And the Northern Manitoba Blizzard will take on the Cam River Fighting Walleye. Moving on to Thursday, May 13th, the Rockland Nationals will take on the Melfort Mustangs. The Trenton Golden Hawks will take on the Grand Prairie Storm. And the Edmundston Blizzard will take on the Calgary Canucks. Moving over to Wednesday, May 14th, the Cam River Fighting Walleye will take on the Greater Sudbury Cubs. The Melfort Mustangs will take on the Braves to Valleyfield. And the Grand Prairie Storm will take on the Northern Manitoba Blizzard. Going into the last couple of days of this tournament, so all these days are still to be determined, but the quarterfinals will take place on Friday, May 16th. Those will be 2 games. The first game will take place at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and 7:30 will be the second game for the quarterfinals at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. The semifinals will take place on Saturday, May 17th. The first game taking place at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and the second game taking place at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. And then the championship final series for the Centennial Cup will take place on Sunday, May 18th. At 5 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So that's just a look at the overall results and upcoming schedule and just an overview of the entire Centennial Cup and what's been taking place as of right now. Well, our last topic that we're going to cover in this episode is going to be revealing our 2025 PJHL Schmalz Cup champion. And the finals, well, we've obviously made it to the finals of the Schmalz Cup between the Hanover Barons and the SX73s. The Hanover Barons eliminating the Napanee Raiders in 7 games, winning that series 4-3, and then the SX73s defeating the New Hamburg Firebirds 4-1, winning that in 5 games, and both of those matchups in the semifinals. Well, for the Schmalz Cup, I can officially say and congratulate the Hanover Barons who won the Schmalz Cup, defeating the SX73s in 4 games with a sweep. And I was just talking to the coordinator of the Bruins tonight, and he was mentioning to me that the last time Hanover won the cup was in 1991, and Hanover defeated Orangeville in 7 games. And our team here locally is the Uxbridge Bruins, and in 1991, Uxbridge actually fell to Orangeville in that semi-final series. So unfortunately, Uxbridge couldn't get past Orangeville, but Orangeville fell to Hanover in 7 games back in 1991. So that's a long time since Hanover has last won the cup. I was born in 1998, so that was 7 years before I was even born. And it was 1 year before the coordinator of the Bruins even joined the team. So I'm sure that the Hanover Barons have a lot to celebrate. There's a couple details to this game overall. So the Hanover Barons, they won 5-4 in overtime in Game 4. SX, they blew a 4-1 lead in the 3rd period. So you just think about it. If SX had a little bit more stronger defense in that 3rd period, this could have very well been a 3-1 series at this point, and I wouldn't even be doing this record at this moment if SX won that game tonight. But because SX blew the game in the 3rd period, the Hanover Barons win their first championship Schmalz Cup victory since 1991. Hanover ended up defeating SX on the road, so in SX's barn, and it was just a vice versa. I would assume SX would have defeated Hanover in their barn tonight, but because they just couldn't keep their lead in the 3rd period, that's the overall result, and it ends up going in favor of the Hanover Barons. So congratulations to the Hanover Barons for winning the Schmalz Cup over the SX73s. I haven't seen the Hanover Barons before, like I said before, as a lot of you may know my past history of joining on to this channel. I grew up with the OJHL and Junior A hockey, so I'm not very familiar with a lot of the Western Ontario teams teams in the Provincial Junior Hockey League. But just to give you an overall recap of what actually took place and how the overall series ended up happening. So on Saturday, May 3rd, the Hanover Barons crushed the S01 6-1 in Hanover to take game number 1. On Sunday, May 4th, we moved to Essex, and it was the Hanover Barons who came out with a close win over Essex, winning that game 2-1. Well, on Wednesday, May 7th, it was the Hanover Barons who once again defeated Essex, but it was a shutout, winning that game 4-0. And then tonight, Saturday, May 10th, the Hanover Barons, who were down 4-1 at the end of the third, they come back and defeat the Essex 73s 5-4 in overtime, winning that game 5-4. So once again, congratulations to the Hanover Barons. A very well-earned and really hard-fought victory for this Barons team. It's very different, I think, for a lot of us out here in the Eastern Conference and in the OR division, because we don't see the Hanover Barons or the Essex 73s or even the New Hamburg Firebirds up to this point for every season. So the only time one of those teams would face off against someone in our division would most likely be Clarington, because Clarington has won the championship in the OR division ever since I joined the Bruins in 2021. So just an overall outstanding performance by the Hanover Barons and the Essex 73s overall. Congratulations to every single team in the entire league for just an outstanding season overall. I mean, like you say, some games are going to go in your favor, some aren't. Some are going to be miracle walk-off overtime victories, and some are going to be devastating overtime and heartbreak losses. I was just getting ready to record this, and I was just finishing watching up game 3 of the Edmonton Oilers and Vegas Golden Knights game, and the game was tied at 3, and we're going overtime 100%. And with 0.4 on the clock, Draisaitl, he tried to keep the puck out of his net with his stick. The puck was going directly through the crease to the other side of the boards, and the puck just got deflected off Draisaitl's stick. It went in the net with 0.4. Rogers Place is completely stunned. I'm completely stunned. I can't believe that happened. So that was quite unexpected, but hey, it's the playoffs. You never know what's going to happen. And a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference here for the PJHL were expecting the Alliston Hornets to go deeply far. Like, they should have played the Clarington Eagles, if anybody. Even if it wasn't the Napanee Raiders, it was going to be the Clarington Eagles maybe. The Winnipeg Jets might have the best record through the entire NHL season, but you fall a couple games in the playoffs and you're going to have to really pay the price. The playoffs is what really matters, and so that's where it all comes down to. You think about all of the upsets that have happened in the CEHL, like the Western Hockey League, the QMJHL, and the OHL. Like, I've just seen it all this season. And, you know, I don't think it went everybody's way. I think the Eastern Conference bracket did go my way, for Oshawa defeating Brampton and then Brantford, and then having Barrie and Oshawa face off against each other. I certainly wasn't expecting a Kitchener-London series. I was definitely expecting a Windsor-London, but that's, again, it just comes down to, you know, who wants it more, who wants to fight for the result, and you know, that's just how it ends up turning out. So in the end, the Hanover Barons, they win the Schmalz Cup. The Centennial Cup is currently underway. So again, if you want to follow that Centennial Cup, be sure to head over to the Hockey Canada website for all of the latest details, updates, stats, and live streams. So thank you everyone for tuning into this episode for covering the Centennial Cup, as well as revealing our 2025 Schmalz Cup champion. Now, if you guys have been creating your own bracket for specifically the OJHL or the PJHL, how did your bracket turn out? For someone who's part of the Uxbridge Bruins, in my mindset, I'm just, you know, expecting the Uxbridge Bruins to go all the way to the Schmalz Cup. But I also know from teams like Clarington and Georgina and, Port Perry and all the teams in our division. I see them every season because we play our division all season long. So I'm not used to seeing so many teams that I'm unfamiliar with in the rest of the league. And so it just goes to show you that there may be certain teams in your division, but there's always more teams out there that are competing for the same trophy and for the same result as you are. So that will wrap up this episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of our latest up-to-date YouTube videos and content like this. Be sure to follow us over on Spotify for our podcast version and over on Bluesky for all of our latest up-to-date notifications. I sometimes post on my Instagram story, but not as much. That's when we'll post a lot of our notifications, and every single notification when we're releasing a video or we're going live on our YouTube channel. That's where all of our notifications will be, over on Bluesky. And hey, maybe later into the summer, or maybe when we get into the fall and we're in a whole new season, maybe we stay with season number 1 of our channel going into the fall, or maybe we just go completely into a new season 2 and create a whole new graphic for our podcast and everything, because there's going to be a lot of changes going into the fall, but there's also going to be a lot of new platforms that we're looking to discover to grow and enhance our audience even more. So we appreciate the support. Tell your friends if they're unaware and they love hockey, whether it's a specific team or a specific league and you want us to cover it all. I mean, we'll do our very best to cover it. We can't go to obviously every single game that's happening in the league, nor can we actually get to every single game. We will definitely try and cover as much content as possible. If there's any PWHL fans out there, personally, I don't watch or follow any of the PWHL, but if you want us to create some content for PWHL, send us a message on our Bluesky or drop a comment down in our YouTube channel or over on Spotify, and we'd be happy to record and upload videos based on your preferred and requested content. So thanks everyone for your support, and we will talk to you again soon.